In an industry obsessed with youth and reinvention, a handful of performers dared to rewrite the rules of longevity. They didn't just age gracefully, they aged audaciously. With trembling hands and glinting eyes, these actors kept rolling after hitting triple digits, proving that passion, not polish, is the real fountain of youth. The eternal gentleman, Sir Norman Lloyd, dapper in every frame. Norman Lloyd's career began in the Great Depression and outlived it by nearly a century. He started under Orson Welles and ended his run as the oldest working actor in Hollywood, filming his final role at 99 and still appearing on red carpets after 100. In 2015, at the age of 100, Lloyd appeared in Judd Apatow's Trainwreck, sharing screen time with Amy Schumer and Bill Hader. He played a charming resident of a retirement home, delivering lines with impeccable timing and a spark of mischief. Few in the audience guessed they were watching a man who had once played tennis with Charlie Chaplin. Lloyd credited his vitality to good luck, good genes, and not acting old. He wasn't joking. He still drove a car in his late 90s and played golf into triple digits. In interviews, he casually name-dropped Alfred Hitchcock like an old drinking buddy. Because he was Broadway's bright flame. Marsha Hunt, blacklisted during the McCarthy era, Marsha Hunt didn't fade. She blazed elsewhere. With Hollywood doors closed, she pivoted to humanitarian work and small theater, yet never stopped performing. Even past 100, Hunt hosted poetry readings, recorded radio plays, and appeared in documentaries about old Hollywood. She was a living time capsule, born before the Great Depression, acting before television existed, and still speaking out about climate change in her final years. In 2015, at age 97, she starred in The Grand Inquisitor, a short psychological film based on Dostoevsky. But more shockingly, she kept attending public screenings into her 101st year, discussing the film with college students and reminding them, art keeps you alive. The late blooming muse, Connie Sawyer, they called her Hollywood's oldest working actress, and Connie Sawyer wore the title like a medal. With over 140 screen credits, she didn't land her biggest roles until her 70s, and she didn't stop until 105. Born in 1912, she lived through 2 world wars and still delivered zingers on The Office, How I Met Your Mother, and NCIS. Her final role came at 105 in the indie comedy Entanglement, where she played a sardonic grandmother with zero patience for cliches. She once joked, "Everyone wants to know my secret. Don't retire and don't dye your hair. If people think you're old, they'll write you great parts." For once, typecasting worked in someone's favor. The soulful artisan, Lupita Tovar. Few actresses have bridged languages, continents, and centuries like Lupita Tovar. Born in Mexico in 1910, she starred in the Spanish-language version of Dracula, 1931, filmed simultaneously with the Bela Lugosi classic. Her career spanned from silent film to sound to family dynasties. Her grandson is director Chris Weitz. She retired from acting in the 1940s, but never left the spotlight entirely. Well into her centenarian years, Tovar attended retrospectives, recorded commentary tracks, and appeared in documentaries about early Latinx cinema. At age 103, she was honored at the Academy's Hispanic Heritage Month celebration. Dressed in crimson silk, she declared, "You never really leave the screen. It follows you, in every mirror." The reluctant icon, Ellen Albertini Dow. You know her face, maybe not her name. But Ellen Albertini Dow stole scenes with surgical precision, even when those scenes were just 30 seconds long. Most remember her as the rapping granny from The Wedding Singer, but her resume stretched far wider. She didn't begin acting until her 60s and booked her final roles at 100. A trained theater professional, she transitioned to screen in her later life, appearing in Seinfeld, Scrubs, and Will and Grace. Her punchline delivery was so crisp, producers often doubled her screen time. In 2014, at age 100, she voiced a character in the animated short In the Night Kitchen, then returned to a local community college to teach drama. "I like being the surprise in the story," she told a student reporter. And she always was. The iron-eyed auteur. Manoel de Oliveira, while not an actor in the traditional sense, Manoel de Oliveira acted in his own films, in documentaries, and most impressively, in Defiance of Time. The Portuguese filmmaker directed his final movie at 106 and frequently appeared on camera, narrating or reflecting on scenes with a voice like weathered stone. De Oliveira started making silent films in the 1930s. By the time he passed in 2015, he'd released more than 50 films, several of which featured him in cameo or narrator roles, past his centennial year. His final completed film, The Old Man of Belem, premiered when he was 105, and he insisted on presenting it personally. Asked why he kept working, he replied, "To remember I'm alive." There was no bitterness in his tone, only wind-blown clarity. The subversive seductress, Patricia Morison, with eyes like polished obsidian and a voice that could peel wallpaper, Patricia Morison dominated Broadway and Hollywood in the mid-century and then kept going. She was the original lead in Kiss Me Kate, and decades later, she was still performing cabaret at charity events. At 101, she appeared on stage at the Pasadena Playhouse, discussing her career and singing a few bars, unamplified but unmistakable. The room went silent when she sang. Her voice had aged like cherry wood, dark, textured, resonant. Morison attributed her long life to vegetarianism and painting. Her walls were lined with oil portraits, and she claimed she could still recite her Shakespeare lines backward and forward. In her words, "You never leave the stage. Sometimes the stage just gets smaller." The stoic everyman, Nehemiah Persoff, a character actor's character actor, Nehemiah Persoff could play mob bosses, rabbis, cab drivers, or presidents. And he did, all the way to age 102. He began in the golden era of television and kept appearing until streaming took over. His final role came in Angels in America, but even after retiring from film, he reinvented himself as a painter. His coastal landscapes sold well, and he held his final art show at 101, cracking jokes with gallery guests in Yiddish and English. Persoff once said, "Acting is truth, whether it's in front of the camera or behind a brush." Few men lived that line more thoroughly. The wise warrior, Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas's voice was thunder and gravel. After a stroke in the 1990s left him partially paralyzed, he relearned how to speak and kept acting. He returned in Diamonds and Illusion, performing well into his 90s and participating in readings and interviews after his 100th birthday. At 101, he took the stage at the Golden Globes to present an award with his daughter-in-law, Catherine Zeta-Jones. The crowd erupted in a standing ovation before he even said a word. Douglas left behind not just a film legacy, but a moral one. He fought the Hollywood blacklist, publicly supported civil rights, and once wrote, "My name is Kirk Douglas. And I speak for those who can't." Even at 102, he still made statements. The Centenarian Paradox. Here's a curious truth. According to the Gerontology Research Group, centenarians are statistically more likely to avoid dementia and chronic disease than those who die in their 80s. It's called the Centenarian Paradox. Those who make it past 100 often experience fewer serious illnesses in their final decade. In Hollywood, that longevity gets turbocharged by passion. Whether it's dialogue, dance, or just the call of the spotlight, these performers seem to tap into a deeper current of life. Maybe performance is the last great vitamin. A bow tie glinting under studio lights, a trembling hand still hitting its mark. Crimson lipstick smudged on a teacup backstage. Applause that doesn't fade, even as footsteps slow. The rasp of a final line. the hush of an audience that just witnessed a century in motion. These centenarians didn't perform to prove something. They performed because it was the only way they knew to be fully alive. Their stories aren't just about survival. They're about devotion. In every wrinkle, a memory. In every breath, a note. In every gaze, a lifetime of characters waiting to speak one more time. If this story moved you, hit like, drop a comment about your favorite screen legend, and subscribe for more true tales from behind the curtain. The spotlight's still on,